A rarely seen combo, crosswinds to start, followed by one of the most savage climbs I've seen in cycling in the last couple of years. This was Saudi Tour Stage 4. Santiago Buitrago on Bahrain's wearing the leader's jersey, and there was a 3 kilometer, 12.1% climb, followed by, which I don't think has ever been used in a race before, it looked recently paved, followed by an 8k, just a plateau across to the edge of, literally the edge of a cliff. And so sunscreen on for the boys, but had the mechanics brought across to the Middle East, some 32 cassettes or some big cassettes, not by the looks of some riders. Anyway, there's crosswinds at the start, and Buitrago was in a good position. You see him in the green jersey, leader's jersey there. DSM were prominent. They'd get your boy Welsford in Group 1 at the end, but I can't really find footage of it. Quickstep blew the race apart. They tried to do the same thing on an earlier stage. Buitrago got on the wrong side of that split, as well as Rui Costa on UAE Team Emirates. That's why you see them pacing, as well as Shamig for UNOX. And Quickstep got 4 or so riders in this Group 1, taking a minute lead with 50 Ks remaining. Van Leeuwenhoek, but more importantly, Baggioli. That's who they were riding for, mainly for the stage win. They also had Tim de Klerk in there, who's actually pretty close in the general classification. The problem was Maxim van Gils. He was the best climber they brought with them. He was up there on GC for Lotto Soudal, decent climber, and they're not going to be bringing Ballerini and co over that final climb. So, long day for UNOX, UAE, Bahrain and co chasing Quickstep all day. And this parcours this year of Saudi Tour has been pretty good and pretty exciting racing compared to the 2020 parcours. So I'd like to see them roll out this parcours again next year. They also had Daniel Oss, who looks in good shape, as well as Terzius in this breakaway, even though Terzius was in that solo move into the headwind yesterday. But as they got close to the climb, de Klerk tried to move off the front, rarely seen. Tim de Klerk riding for his own GC here, trying to get ahead of the group, and then he kind of stopped. Maybe there was a headwind, I don't know, and then the other Quickstep guys started pacing again, and Bahrain would never be able to bring it back. Despite Gradek and Masiuk, the 2 Polish recruits, they look really good, but they lost Fred Wright to a hand injury. He was out, so they were missing a strong rouleur. They get to the base of the climb, and Baggioli takes off. And it's interesting how these young riders, very talented, how it's different when you're riding with Roglic, and he's obviously the favourite. You sit on him and then try your best in the sprint at the end. It's different when you've had 5 teammates riding for you the entire day and you're the favourite to win the stage. How do you cope with that? How do you keep your cool? Well, he launched it at the start of this steep climb, and it was 500 meters, like 20%. Outrageous climb. He was caught by Maxim van Gils, who started a bit steadier on the climb. Buitrago started way behind and did the climb kind of with Costa the whole time. Van Gils caught Baggioli, and he looked much, much stronger. Baggioli already weaving, looking behind. This took them over 12 minutes to do about 2.5 kilometers, and eventually Van Gils, with 550 meters left in the climb, left Baggioli behind. He put 30 seconds into him on the climb. Buitrago, I think, did the climb 4 seconds faster than Van Gils. They did Van Gils sort of 5.8 watts per kilo for 12 minutes. So not nuclear, but it'd been a relatively hard day on the crosswinds before, and it's been a pretty hard race with crosswinds or cross headwind at the start of yesterday's stage. And yeah, Van Gils rode away from Baggioli, taking not just the stage win in his sights when he got to this fast tailwind plateau section, but also likely taking a comfortable lead in the general classification, with Buitrago only catching up to the de Klerk, Van Poppel group around the crest with 8 Ks to go, a minute back, never catching Van Gils. They did about 60 Ks an hour on this plateau section. And it's interesting to see Quickstep riding all day for a rider, and also thinking about de Klerk GC, and they got mugged on the climb by Van Gils. But the problem with a climb like that is you can't use numbers that well on the climb itself. You need to get a gap before the climb, which they kind of tried but didn't really try with de Klerk beforehand. Because with a climb that steep, the strongest man is the one who is going to crest the top first, and Van Gils kept it going. I mean, Baggioli did like 300 watts in the plateau, but couldn't really make any headway into Van Gils. He knew he had it at this point, and Baggioli kind of dangled ahead of the de Klerk group for a long time. But this has been a good start to the season with the Lotto Soudal. Not great with Zerlig's crash yesterday, but they won in Mallorca with De Lee, and then Van Gils has won the stage stage here today, and if he holds it on tomorrow in GC, I mean, there's always could be crosswinds, he'll take, I think, 125 UCI points, which is a good chunk of points, and they probably wouldn't have expected, they would have expected Van Hills to maybe top 5 GC, but he wasn't the favourite to win GC here, and he's looking pretty good to do that tomorrow. Meanwhile, Baggioli was caught with about 1 kilometre to go. De Klerk attacked over the top of him, and one of the best sprints ever from De Klerk, and also Luka Mezgec in incredible shape, getting over that climb very well with Daniel Osenko. De Klerk v Mezgec for second on the stage. De Klerk is trying to take bonus seconds on Rui Costa and try and get on the podium in the general classification. And I think Quickstep will try again tomorrow if there is any sniff of wind for him, but he's not able to beat Luka Mezgec, who did a great lead up for Groenewegen yesterday. Mezgec taking second on the stage, De Klerk third. Van Poppel climbing well fourth, Rui Costa fifth, Os sixth, and Renard, Buitrago, Baggioli, and Geniez. An incredibly varied top 10 given the parkour and given that 3 kilometre rampas climb close to the finish. Van Hills goes into the GC lead 30 seconds ahead of Buitrago, 48 seconds ahead of Rui Costa, unless there is a massive split or a crash or something tomorrow. The stage is not hard enough to be making up 35 seconds, so it really is whether there's wind. Bahrain, UAE, or Quickstep will be able to put Lotto Soudal under pressure. Lotto Soudal got a pretty good flat team, but also so do Quickstep. And Bahrain might try something with Gradek, Mathieu, and Jonathan Milan as well, who are pretty strong rouleurs. But yeah, 140 Ks should be a sprint finish. Famous last words, and it looks like Groenewegen v Ewan round 3. But if you want to check out my coverage of Valenciana and Bessèges, that's on the Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast, link in the pinned comment down below.